Welcome back to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. We're recording this on Halloween, October 31st, and we're going to be going over the midweek matches that happened yesterday on Wednesday.
No trick-or-treating from either of us tonight, unfortunately. I try to stay away from candy, and by that I mean I ate way too much today at work.
Yeah, I can say the same. So let's talk about something less scary, perhaps, and Bayern Munich's nice win 4-0 over Mainz in the DFB Pokal.
In full disclosure here, didn't see a ton of the match really at all, but seeing a 4-0 win, as I expected from Bayern in this cup, the DFB Pokal, Bayern stays on a roll against lesser talented teams, and it's great to see for them.
Yeah, Mainz is a good team in my opinion, but man, they looked bad in this matchup. They were just clearly overwhelmed by Bayern Munich, and this Bayern Munich team under Vincent Kompany playing this way can and should certainly overwhelm mid-table Bundesliga sides. So I was a little disappointed with what I saw from Mainz, but I was very happy with what Bayern Munich showcased, especially because they got to rest some key players, now that they're playing matches 2 a week, it seems, at this rate. And then, after that first half, it was 4-0 at halftime. They got to rest a bunch of players in the second half, too.
Always key when you can play some of those guys and rest them as well. We'll talk a lot about rest in the latter half of this podcast, I'm sure. But, yeah, just a perfect result for Bayern because you're playing well. Momentum still building. You put up 4.5, which is crazy. And not to mention you have a player on your team that just came back from injury that's showing he's one of the best talents in the world. And, of course, I'm talking about Jamal Musiala.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff for Bayern in this match, and we'll start off here just by going over the lineup to give you a little bit of an idea of what Kompany was going for and how the match started off. So no surprise, Manuel Neuer in between the sticks. We had Alphonso Davies at left back. We had Min-Jae Kim as one of the center backs, and the other center back was Eric Dyer. It was revealed that Dayot Upamecano has a thigh injury, so we're going to hope that he's resting up and going to be ready for the weekend. There may be a little bit of a problem with the center back position, as we'll get to later on in this match. Eric Dyer actually got injured and had to come out. So, like I said, though, we'll get there. At the right back, we had Konrad Laimer. The midfield pivot was Joshua Kimmich and João Palhinha, and then the attackers were Serge Gnabry as the left winger, Musiala as the 10, Leroy Sane at the right wing, which I've been calling for him to start for a while, so I was glad to see that, and Harry Kane at the 9.
Yeah, interesting they went with Sane over there as opposed to Michael Olise. Olise, who has, I think, struggled in some matches recently. Kind of an interesting move, and a move that gets more guys playing time. And I think, as we've discussed, you want all of your attackers firing on all cylinders. So I think that was the right move by Kompany.
Yeah, me too. And, we talk a lot about how Bayern has this overflow of attackers, specifically wingers, at that position. So I thought it was good to get Olise some rest. Like I said, Bayern's been basically playing 2 matches a week, and a lot of these guys are on the international rosters as well. So you're seeing just a lot of action, and I want them to be healthy for the long run of the season. So it was good to see a little bit of rotation there, but also putting out a strong enough lineup where you have a feeling that you can, have a good showing.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, and I don't know enough about how German teams do their lineups with the DFB Pokal. Bayern doesn't seem to have as much depth as maybe they'd like this season due to some injuries and just their overall play so far. So it's not like they can just throw a bunch of subs out there. And I do think they probably want to win this trophy this season just because of what they've been struggling to do in the past year or so. So it makes sense they'd put out a respectable team.
Yeah, Bayern's been very, very weak in the Pokal the last couple of years. They lost early last year under Thomas Tuchel and the year before. In those matches, they put out a really weak lineup, so I think right now they're very, very motivated, and they should be. They had no trophies last year, and obviously for a club like Bayern, that's not acceptable. So I think right now Bayern is clearly locked in domestically. I think they're it's still really early to tell. But their sights are definitely on the domestic double, at least.
If I'm Kompany, I'm definitely aiming for that cup trophy. It's probably the easiest one to get, and that is a job saver, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, so things got started in this match very quickly. In the first minute of the match, we saw a nice little pass from Serge Gnabry, a little bit of a run from Serge, but a very good pass to find Alphonso Davies. Davies took a great run, and then he passed it into Harry Kane, who kind of, passed the ball right back, I think on the first touch, to Jamal Musiala. Musiala puts it in the back of the net. Bayern's soaring high a minute into the match, and you could maybe even say that was the moment of the match because of how overwhelming and how complete that attack was. And I will mention too that Kane, when he had the ball there, passing it to Musiala, was a very, very unselfish move, because a lot of strikers, I think, with his capability would probably have taken the shot themselves, but he gave it off to Musiala for that small percentage more, incrementally more likely to score, and it paid off.
Yeah, all three players that you named there looked brilliant on that run. Kane, as you mentioned, being selfish, and I'd say it was a finish that you need to put away if you're Musiala, but it did look like he put a tiny bit of loft on it, almost getting it to the right of the keeper, but a little bit of extra cheekiness there, which I appreciated.
Yeah, and you could tell right from the start here that Musiala was going to be on fire. Just like the weekend against Bochum, Musiala coming back from injury looks rejuvenated, and it looks like he is just on a mission. So it was great to see that right in the beginning. And then as the match progressed, Bayern had some more chances. Around the 20th minute or so, there was just a brutal foul on Musiala. I don't know how it wasn't a red card. It was, maybe the no VAR in this round of the Pokal, and maybe the ref just didn't see it, but he just got elbowed in the head as he was running, spun around like a helicopter in the air, landed on the ground, and Vincent Kompany on the sidelines was furious. I've never seen him or heard him this mad.
If your reasoning is that the ref didn't see it, then he had to be blind, because seeing the highlight of that, with how hard he got hit, you're either looking the other way or you're setting the tone, basically saying, I'm not calling anything today.
Yeah, and Musiala is not the strongest guy, but regardless of that, I mean, it was just almost like an MMA move or like a WWE wrestling move. Like you'd see someone jump off the top of the ropes and take someone down. It was very aggressive, and I think that, that kind of paints a good picture. Is I'm not sure what Mainz's game plan was tactically, but it seemed like it was just to be super aggressive. There were a lot of hard tackles and a lot of fouls where it seemed like they were just trying to rattle Bayern early, and maybe that's, what you got to do when you're a team that isn't quite as talented, but I think it almost worked in the other way, because it looked like Mainz was the team that was rattled pretty early.
Yeah, if that's your goal, that can either backfire immediately if the other team asserts their dominance, or it can work out and you can grind out a win.
And then in the 25th minute there, we saw a great shot by Leroy Sane. He had a couple of good shots that the keeper saved. The keeper actually had a nice game, I will say, on Mainz. There was a play, I guess before I talk about this Sane shot, there was a play a little bit earlier where he made such a brave play. He ran out at Kane, and Kane at the last second had to kind of jump over him as the keeper was diving into Kane, and sliced open a spot on his head above his eyebrow from Kane's cleat, and was on the ground bleeding for a while. So he kind of came back with a bandage and played like a warrior there. But anyways, back in the 25th minute, Sane fires off a great shot. The keeper is able to deflect it, and it goes right to Gnabry, who I don't know how he didn't put this one away, because it was pretty much an open net, but Gnabry hits it off the post, gets that rebound off of his own shot, and then just misses a second shot there. So that was another moment in the match where you thought, wow, Bayern could have been up, even more very early.
And to briefly head back to that Kane moment, I did see today that the keeper came out and is very pissed at Kane for what he believed he had no business being near that play, apparently. I did not see the highlight, to be clear, so I have no comment on it, but wanted to bring that up because I thought it was interesting, and you wonder if the next time they play, if Kane has a little retaliation coming his way from the Mainz players.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty weak statement, to be honest, from the keeper. It was 70-30, maybe the keeper lunging at Kane and 30% Kane trying to follow through on the ball. Granted, the keeper has more of a right to lunge towards a ball like that, but he put himself in that position. It was a brave play. I'm going to commend him on that because he actually saved a goal there, but it definitely wasn't Kane's fault, and Kane tried to jump over him too. So, I saw a different Mainz player saying that the refs clearly had a Bayern shirt on in that match. So, I think Mainz was maybe just a little bit salty after that loss.
I was going to say, if you got multiple players complaining, it sounds like they just maybe are mad at themselves ultimately for not playing well.
Yeah, and Mainz had a few chances in the first half too, but I gotta say Bayern's defense just looked extremely solid, and I'm not gonna say it's the steady communicative presence of Eric Dyer back there, but when I saw him in the lineup and I heard about Upa's injury, I was worried that the back line would kind of be, that Dyer wouldn't be quick enough or have enough pace to play with this style. And I think Kompany maybe even adjusted his tactics a little bit to be a little bit more conservative, especially in the second half once the subs came on. But yeah, it was just a great game plan, and I want to commend all the players on the back line, especially Eric Dyer.
And that's just what Bayern needed, is a really solid game defensively after some of the matches that they've had recently.
Yep. The other thing, too, to mention is I think Bayern was very quick to react when they would lose the ball, and that is some of the reason why teams were able to create chances against them quickly in earlier matches this year. But, yeah, when Bayern would lose the ball this time, they were very, very quick to get back, to kind of defend and to win the ball back, which was super important.
Yeah, that's a key component to their system, I think. Trying to win the ball back as quickly as you can. That's part of why you're playing so high up. So if they're humming along and doing that, it's really going to help them offensively as well.
In the 37th minute, then, we saw the floodgates open, and Musiala got his second goal of the match off of a shot from Kane that just rebounded off the keeper. It was a very nice shot from Kane. I think the ball to Kane either came from Leroy or Davies, but yeah, again, a great shot from Kane, and Musiala just being in the right place at the right time. He almost played like a striker. I think him and Kane play so well together. They can kind of interchange roles because Kane's good at dropping back and facilitating as well as putting that finishing touch on the ball, whereas Musiala, who in the past, that would be maybe one thing you could criticize about him, is his finishing wasn't always there, or his final decision wasn't always there. But when it's on like this, him and Kane are just so dangerous together.
Yeah, when you're playing against a team where you're building momentum, building confidence, grabbing an early lead, I think Musiala probably has the license to just go up as far as he wants, the freedom to do whatever he wants. He slices and dices all the way through. He can get up into the box after he sees others attacking ahead of him, and that's going to get him a lot of goals like this one. And that's just going to happen when you're playing a team that you feel good against, really.
Agreed. And then, the action wasn't over there for the half, because in the 45th minute, Leroy Sane got on the score sheet off of a counter, which was nice to see because Bayern doesn't always score off the counter. It was pretty much a little bit of everything so far in this match. And the counter started with a beautiful ball from Kane. As Kane's known to do, it's just, if you see the highlights, it was just a typical Kane pass, just leading Davies so far. And a guy like Davies, who has the pace to pretty much outrun his opponents, get up to the ball, kind of in stride with the rest of the attack, it was just perfect. So Kane led Davies. Davies had a beautiful run with the ball, and he found Sane, and Sane was able to put it home. Just a beautifully placed shot by Sane, which we've seen from him lately, and like I said, it's good to see him getting some confidence back.
Yeah, that's how Davies should be used that's when he's at his best, is countering using his speed. And Sane's shot, it's the type of shot going across net that I always try to practice a lot on the pitch myself. So beautiful to see that shot actually be effective.
Yeah, I mean, maybe me and you are going to get up to this level someday. But yeah, the scoring still was not over in the first half for Bayern Munich, and I think it was maybe the 48th or so minute. Musiala got his hat trick in the first half with a nice run from Sane. The initial shot was from Konrad Laimer actually, and the ball was again off a deflection, and Musiala was again in the right place at the right time, as a striker would play, and he was just there to put it home and get his hat trick.
Yeah, similar to that second one that he scored. And as I mentioned, instincts are key. He shows that he has that ability, and that's huge from your number 10 in that role.
Yeah, so as mentioned before, halftime rolls along and Vincent Kompany is able to make some subs. So we saw Thomas Muller come on at half for Musiala, and we saw Tell come on for Kane, which is a little interesting. Kane usually doesn't come out, especially in a match like this when he's kind of knocking on the door to score, but I think it was good to see Kane get some rest. He has dealt with some injuries this year as well. Both Muller and Tell didn't necessarily have a crazy good match. They were both decent, I thought pretty good. But with Tell at this point, you're going to want to see more when he does play. I was talking him up all last year, all the beginning of this year, thinking he was going to just go off this year. But he's really struggled for playing time, and he hasn't found a rhythm when he has played. And I think part of it, too, is, he really has to do something now when he plays, and it seems like he feels that pressure, and it's almost this unjust, having to force things and having to, maybe make something happen out of nothing.
Yeah, I'm not going to expose your cold take yet at this point about Tell scoring at least 20 goals, but at some point that discussion will need to be had. We still got some time. He can make things better. He probably needs injuries at this point of other players for him to really get going. So it's been unfortunate for him to start. But like I said, he's got time, so I wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah, and then in the 58th minute, we saw Rafa Guerreiro come on, Leon Goretzka came on. In the 71st minute, Ibrahimovic actually came on, which was cool to see because he's a youngster, and it's good to get him minutes in big matches like this. Although it wasn't cool to see that he came on because Eric Dyer suffered a hamstring injury. Hoping that that's not too bad of an injury because we're looking very, very thin at the center back position right now. Especially, with Upa not playing this match. We actually ended the match with Laimer and Goretzka playing center back, which is interesting because neither of them are center backs. So hopefully we don't have to kind of hobble into these next matches with a couple of makeshift center backs.
Laimer would be the shortest center back in the history of football, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could maybe see him in this Kompany system because Laimer just runs and runs and runs, but he's definitely not built like a center back, and I don't know who would be, doing those challenges. I guess maybe Polina, but it would be interesting to see. Luckily, at this point in the match, Bayern was thoroughly in control, and it didn't really matter much.
Yeah, he's winning 0% of aerial duels as a center back.
Yeah. So, there really isn't that much to talk about in this second half for Bayern Munich. They just played a little bit more conservatively. They kind of locked things down, and it was good to see that because truthfully we haven't seen the defense play like that very much this season. So it was good to see that Kompany was at least thinking about his tactics in this way and that the team is able to do it. And they, held off Mainz for the rest of the second half and got the 4-0 victory.
When you can cruise in the second half, it's never a bad thing. Would they have liked to score a couple more? Maybe so with the subs that came on. But as I say, time and time again, you're never going to be upset with a huge win, with any type of win. And cruising like that is an incredible feeling for those players, I'm sure.
Yeah, so now I'll just hand out a couple of match awards here. Man of the match, obviously Jamal Musiala. No doubt about that one. I mean, the man got a hat trick in a half, so just a great match from Moose. And like I said, it's good to see him looking rejuvenated. And when he's a part of this attack, I mean, you saw it in the second half when he came out. The attack was much less creative and a lot slower. So when he's healthy and on the pitch, it just works wonders for this attack.
And you've seen so far this year, he's their most important player. You can argue Kane is the better player. Fine, I won't listen or argue against that. But with Musiala, when he was out and Bayern has struggled, it's clear to me as of now he is their key player. When they have him, they're playing at their best.
It's true. I gave my Robin of the Match award to Leroy Sane. Again, just a great match overall by him. He really uses his pace. He fired off a bunch of great shots. One of them went in. A couple of them were deflected, But yeah, I'm glad he got the start, and I like to see what he brings in this attack. I'm not saying he should start over Olise. I've been clamoring for a Olise right wing, Sane left wing for a while now. I get that, maybe he doesn't overlap with Davies on the left side as much as somebody like Coman or Gnabry would, but I think that would just be such a special attack.
I mean, that's a great one, too, a great Batman Robin from Bayern. And let's not forget, it's Halloween. Let's stay with the theme. I'm just going to throw in the Joker of the match, the keeper for Mainz, for his post-game comments.
There's a couple guys on Mainz who could give that award to. I'm sticking with the underrated fire, and I'm giving it to the midfield pivot of Joshua Kimmich and João Palhinha. I mean, they both played great. It's good to see them getting time together. It's good to see them getting chemistry because, as we know, Alexander Pavlovich is going to be out for at least the calendar year, and we need to see these two, get their chemistry up. Mostly Palhinha get his confidence up, so that was good to see. And yeah, I mean, Kimmich just had another masterclass. He's so fluid in that midfield. When the center backs got injured, he kind of dropped back to almost play a back three or kind of play right back. I mean, he really can just do it all.
Great to see them continue to hum along in that midfield.
My defender of the match, I'm going to shout out Alphonso Davies again because I can't say it enough, but under this Kompany system, he's such an important part of this team. And when he leaves this summer, barring some sort of miraculous turnaround, there's going to be a massive, massive hole at that position. Now, once Hiroki Ito's healthy, we'll hope that he can maybe fill it in some sort of way. But the way that Davies is being used in this system, it's just miraculous. I mean, I don't want to compare apples to apples here because it's really apples to oranges with Kompany and Tuchel and how they use Davies. But, I mean, Davies in the Tuchel system having to be very conservative, it kind of stifled his attack. It kind of snuffed his fire a little bit. And quite frankly, he just wasn't very interested in playing defense last year, whereas this year he is somehow getting back in time. So, yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough. Great match from Davies.
The turnaround from his play and subsequently your attitude toward him is something that'll be studied years from now.
I just love him in this system. He's such a beautiful part of this attack, and really that's what he should be. I mean, a guy like that, with the profile that he has, really should be utilized in a team's attack. But yeah, a few more shout-outs to rattle off here just because so many players had a solid game. I think Kane had a really solid game, even though he only played that half. Again, Dyer, my man, glad to see him get some minutes. I thought Kim maybe had his best match of the year, too. Kim looked great positionally, whereas so far this year he hasn't. And then also Leon Goretzka, I thought he looked good when he was in, and it's looking like his number is going to have to be called a little bit more here. So good to get him some minutes. We don't want him to come into a big match looking completely rusty. So good job, Leon.
Always good to get your guys' minutes, as I've said a million times. Probably getting old at this point, but it's just the truth. You just need guys getting minutes, staying active, and staying strong.
Yeah, so looking ahead now for Bayern, they have a couple of big matches coming up. This weekend they play the surprise team of the season, Union Berlin, who's sitting in 4th place in the Bundesliga. And honestly, it's totally shocking to me. I look at their roster and I think, how the hell is this team doing so good? They're scraping away with points. Almost every match, it seems like. I think they have one loss, and I want to say it was to Leipzig. But, yeah, they are not an attacking powerhouse at all, but they're such a defensively sound team that it's going to be an interesting match for Bayern on Saturday, because they as in Bayern, also has the Champions League match on Wednesday against Benfica, which I would say is a must-win, which is crazy to say at this point in the season, but Bayern already has 2 losses in the Champions League, so I guess we can talk about that a little bit more in the next episode, but I'll just say watch out for this Union Berlin team. It might be a little bit of a trap match if Bayern's back line is still banged up and if they maybe have one eye on this Champions League match.
I think Bayern will smoke them with or without a defense. 5-1, 4-1, something along those lines. I probably already threw a prediction down. I have no clue what it was. Could have been 3-1, but I think Bayern are going to start really showing people that they can be a powerhouse.
I mean, let's hope for that one, because if Bayern starts to put things together, they're already looking dangerous in these matches against weaker teams. So if they can start to put things together and show this against stronger teams too, it's just going to be a great year. We'll see. I do think Bayern's going to win. I think that, I don't think that Berlin's defense will be able to hold an attack like Bayern's for a full 90 minutes. Like I said, we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a good one.
And to be clear, my reasoning for that is simply due to one man, Jamal Musiala. What he does for the team is so special and important. And with him playing well, Bayern can do anything they want.
All right, and before we forget, we probably should talk about that unfortunate Chelsea match against Newcastle in the EFL. I think that's the initial Carabao Cup.
Yeah, they lost 2-0. I didn't watch the entire match. I watched up until Newcastle's second goal. Gave you a buzz on my way home to see if I needed to watch any further. And when you informed me that I didn't and I saw the score was 2-0, I was sad. I was upset is maybe the wrong word, going into it knowing they're going to be putting their B team on the pitch at Newcastle. Newcastle coming out with just as strong of a lineup as they had on Sunday at the Bridge. I wasn't expecting a ton. I was just really excited to watch, because having these 2 different teams, as I've talked about, has been an awesome opportunity as a fan to almost be rooting on 2 different teams. And they're all Chelsea, but when they were all playing so well together, it's so fun. And I think they had some elements of that were strong at times, controlling the ball, actually ending up with a higher expected goal count than Newcastle. But maybe the Conference League was a bit of a smokescreen. Those teams are so much worse than a strong Premier League team. And maybe that's kind of what got us a little overinflated. And ultimately, it cost Chelsea a tough match here, and they're out of the EFL Cup.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm just a schmuck behind a microphone here, and I'm not a Premier League side coach. But I think what you have to do in a match like that is kind of mix and match. I get it if you want to rest guys and you don't want to play all your starters and you're really going to go all in the Premier League. But it seems a little bit disrespectful to Newcastle to me to play a full B squad. And I know that they have had some great chemistry and some great success in the Conference League, but these Conference League teams, they're just not a strong Premier League side.
It's tough, and I trust Enzo Maresca. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I think you've been able to see his identity in both the A team and the B. This B team, to be clear, at this point is more of a mix than you'd think. Enzo Fernandez is your captain on the A team to start the year. He's now demoted to this B team. So you got him, you got Cucurella, argue Jorgensen is kind of a 1B. You got Tosin, who has started entire seasons for Fulham in the Premier League. Christopher Nkunku, who most would argue should be in an A team. João Felix, who's been a tremendous talent his entire career in La Liga and some crossover with Chelsea in the Premier League. And then you still got Mudryk, who cost $60 million. Dewsbury Hall, who led Leicester up to the Premier League in the Championship League last year. So it's not like these guys are all slouches. I get what Maresca's doing. I agree with it. You have a huge squad. You're trying to rest guys. But it's less about rest, and I think more just about having all these players that you want to get time and allow them to play, because eventually at some point these players will get upset and want out because they're not playing enough. And if that costs you the Carabao Cup, to me that's a price I'm willing to pay when you still have the FA Cup coming, the Conference League, which I think will go all the way to the end. And right now they're battling for top 4, which in my opinion is more important.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I think if it was up to me, again, schmuck, microphone, not a coach. Although maybe someday I'll have that coaching license and really change things around for international football here in America. I guess I just realized in this episode so far I've proclaimed us to be on the same stage as Sane, as well as me being a coach. So anyways, I think I would have liked to see maybe somebody like Noni on that right wing. I think that I would have liked to see Enzo in the midfield pair with a Caicedo, and then maybe like a Colwell in one of the center back roles. But hey, I guess it's water under the bridge at this point. And Newcastle I think deserved the win, although I will say I just watched the highlights. The match happened at the same time as the Bayern match. Both you and I were on the road. It looked like Felix in particular had a lot of chances, and Chelsea had a good amount of chances themselves. So I guess if I don't know, the coin lands differently, the outcome could have been different.
Yeah, and I think kind of throwing this game aside, not having watched it as much, agree with your take on Felix there. More as a general point, I will say you do have 3 guys that are never playing twice in a week: Reece James, Romeo Lavia, and West Fofana. Due to past injuries, they've come out and said essentially they're just never playing twice in a week. That, to me, will make it tough at times. They're 3 super important players. I think a guy like Caicedo is less likely to play in matches too, just because he's so important for your Premier League. And maybe later in the Conference League when they're really trying to get a trophy, he'll play. I just think some of these guys on this B squad aren't as good as they should be, which also causes this squad not to be as high-performing. Dewsbury Hall, you mentioned that right wing. You never should put him there. Unfortunately, he was there. I actually agree with your Noni take, and he was the only sub in the entire match for Chelsea. Came on in the 57th minute, I believe. I didn't see how he played, but to me, he has been poor, and I think he's a B-squad guy in my eyes now. I'm starting Neto, Sancho, Mudryk on the wings over him, so I wasn't surprised that he was the guy that got in. It's just tough at this point, as I mentioned, where you got all these guys, and I love the competition. I just think there's some players that we're starting to realize they might not be amazing fits for this Enzo side.
Yeah, and it's all about that balance. I mean, if that really is the case, then some of these guys just got to go on loan, or they just got to get sold, And that's not... It's obviously partially on Enzo because he's the one making the starting lineup, but it's not like it's only on him with the squad building and all these guys that Chelsea are signing. A lot of these guys were signed before he even came in, so you should try to win every competition you're in, and you should try to get some silverware. I feel like there needs to be a guy who's just the cornerstone of both of these teams, or somebody who could lead both the teams when they play these matches. And I guess maybe I'm hoping it's a Caicedo. In the case of Bayern Munich, it's not, again, apples to apples. Maybe it's apples to oranges, especially with the level of competition in the DFB Pokal versus these English cups. But a guy like Kimmich, the Energizer Bunny, he's played every single minute for Bayern this year, which is absolutely insane. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing that really to anybody, but it just shows that it can be done. You can have a guy who is that leader.
Yeah, and I largely agree with a lot of your opinions there. As a bit of a contrarian point here, I will say the injuries Chelsea have dealt with the last 2 years, since I've been a fan, have been absurd. It's almost felt like they're cursed, that they have the worst training department in the history of football. It's been absolutely unreal. Right now, they have 0 injuries, lowest in the Premier League. You're seeing guys like Rodri that are out for the season. You're seeing guys all across leagues that are picking up massive injuries. Arsenal are dealing with that week in and week out.
Yeah, Spurs and Man U, I think, both have a ton of injuries too.
And I think you can directly so far point to Maresca's, whether you want to call it resting program, 2-squad program, whatever. You can correlate those two things, the non-injury to that, and I think that side of it is good. When you're having less injuries, that's a great thing. From there, you can always figure it out. I think you almost expect to always have 4 injuries on average at a time, let's say. And that's why you build this huge squad. Then suddenly you don't have those 4 injuries, and all of a sudden your squad is maybe a bit too big. That's not really his fault or anybody's fault. That's just kind of the result of how things have gone.
Yeah, I think I land on the side of a squad being too big is never really... It's first world problems, I guess, is the way I would look at it, because the squad is too big until it isn't. Like you said, people start to get injured, and then you have guys that need to play, and these guys are professionals. Obviously, sometimes there can be issues in the locker room, and it's a lot for a coach to juggle. But, I mean, look at someone like Goretzka. The man was told to leave Munich, and now he's being needed. And you could have called that at the beginning of the season. So, I don't know. You hope that guys are professional enough to handle it. It's a tough thing to juggle, as we keep saying. But, we'll see what happens here moving forward, I guess. And hopefully Chelsea's A squad can show up in the Premier League this weekend.
Yeah, and the only other thing I want to touch on, because it's massively prevalent online right now, is Enzo Fernandez. I will maybe talk over the international break, either this one or down the line once we get to the halfway point, about players, if I think they're fitting with the Maresca squad, if I think they'll last for the future temporarily or longer, 8 years down the line. But in my opinion right now, and I'll note Enzo Fernandez, it's been in the news now, he's going through a divorce. He's been with his partner and a few kids at least, for 6 years or something. Rumors are saying that he missed out apparently on life, and now he wants to experience life. Whether that's true or not, fine. I add that just to say that you never know what a guy's going through. It could be affecting his play, maybe not, have no clue. I just want to say I'm not going to overreact at this point. He's an over $100 million player. He's a guy that when Maresca got hired, whether it was true or not, the rumors were saying that Enzo was going to be a guy that he wants to use as a cornerstone of Chelsea. Clearly Palmer's that guy more now, but Fernandez was viewed that way right when Maresca was hired. I'll also add, I just think it's too early with his price and his potential that we've seen at this point in Maresca's first 3 months to throw him to the wayside. I get being upset, but the beauty of these two squads, you can see how he does in either of them, whether it's a sub for the A squad, playing more with the B squad in the Conference League, or the FA Cup when that comes along. I think right now it's a bit too early still to hit the panic button. If it gets to a point where it continues and Andre Santos keeps playing as well as he is for Strasbourg, then yeah, we can have a discussion about should he be in the squad instead of Enzo. And I'll be fine with that at the time.
I think the biggest thing, too, is just chemistry. I mean, you see the chemistry that Caicedo and Lavia have right now. They're playing so well together. And why disrupt that? I wouldn't disrupt that as a coach. And maybe it's a little bit surprising. I'm a little bit surprised with how well those two are playing, especially Lavia, I guess. But I don't want to keep, drawing comparisons to Bayern Munich, but that's what I know best, so I'm going to do it. You saw Kimmich and Pavlovic in the midfield all season. Palhinha couldn't break into that lineup to save his life. And now Palhinha is the guy who's needed because Pavlovic is injured, broke his collarbone, out for months and months. So you have to run with what works to an extent for a while, and Caicedo and Lavia are that right now. You can see their chemistry. You hope that Enzo is training as hard as he possibly can and building that chemistry, and then when the time comes, he'll be there. He'll be able to step in and maybe even become a more regular starter in the A squad at some point. I don't know. But, yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, all these guys are human. They're all going through stuff. That's first and foremost what you have to realize as a fan, and hopefully the midfield chemistry at Chelsea will stay, and then hopefully Enzo will be part of that at some point.
Yeah, and I think this weekend against Manchester United, we'll see Caicedo and Lavia continue their strong play. Arguably a big match. Man United going with their interim manager, Ruud van Nistelrooy. They won't have Ruben Amorim until the break in November, it sounds like. So hopefully Chelsea can continue their Premier League momentum after a big win against Newcastle last Sunday, and then kind of go from there. I'm going to be heading up to Lambeau Field, for those that are familiar, this weekend. So TBD whether I catch the match on Sunday or not. Either way, I'll be watching it Sunday night, even if I get home at 11 p.m., because that's how much I need to see Chelsea beat Man U.
Well, it sounds like we got a couple of big matches this weekend, and you can throw the Green Bay Packers in there too. So it's going to be a good weekend of football and football.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I think that's all we got to talk about for these midweek matches. And, we'll see you on the other side. We'll, of course, have a reaction to these weekend matches, so stay tuned for that. Mia San Mia.
Up the Chelsea.